Sims Nation, welcome to the new era of honest reviews with me, your host, Positively Pat Sims. Yes, we're changing things up just slightly. And by that, we mainly mean we're kind of taking our time with this show a little bit by allowing you guys to see a premiere and then watch it on demand if you want. But we're going to be recording these ahead of time to perhaps maybe liven them up just a little bit for you guys as we build towards getting more and more of you guys part of that Sims Nation to be a part of honest reviews as we push forward and try to grow and grow and grow. And you'll notice I'm not wearing a shirt that's altogether appropriate for the subject of today's honest reviews. Yes, I'm wearing my Spaceballs, the t-shirt. Thank you, Timu, for all that you do. But, guys, we are starting off the new era of honest reviews and this premiere with an honest review of Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Warning, if you have not seen The Empire Strikes Back, I suggest you watch it before my honest review. Yes, because one of the biggest spoilers in the history of movies is about to be revealed here. One of the greatest twists of all time that shocked the world is about to be talked about on this show. The Empire Strikes Back has done nothing but gain favor over time. People aren't looking back at Empire and kind of thinking, it really wasn't that good. It really wasn't as good as I thought it was before that. You're getting more people now that are appreciating the amazing work that is The Empire Strikes Back. And Empire picks up shortly after the events of Star Wars, which, of course, became subtitled Episode 4, A New Hope. And if you want to hear our honest reviews of Episodes 1 through 4, we have a playlist of honest reviews, along with a bunch of other reviews that we've done thus far here. I believe we're at, this is episode, or should be, episode 22 of honest reviews. So that means there's 21 additional episodes that you can check out right here on YouTube, as honest reviews is exclusive to YouTube. So let's get a move on here. George Lucas writing, producing, but not directing this film. This one was directed instead by a former instructor of George's, who is a well-known director in and of himself, and I only knew him, apart from Empire, as directing RoboCop 2. And that would be Irvin Kershner. And Kershner had the unenviable task of directing the sequel to perhaps the biggest film of the last 100 years. I mean, it was obviously, because there weren't a whole lot of films back in the 1800s, but I mean, you're talking about the sequel to one of the biggest films of all time. Let's just put it that way. That sounds less stupid. All right. But no, but I don't think anybody wanted that gig. As much as you would imagine you would love to direct a Star Wars film, it's a little bit different when Star Wars is not a known commodity. It's not a known entity, and not everyone and their brother is dying to get a piece of the pie. There was one Star Wars, and it was a phenomenon. And now we have the follow-up. And the follow-up has to either be better or it's going to be worse, right? Like, even if it's just as good as the original, people aren't going to view it that way. It's got to be better. You've got to go above and beyond with a sequel, or it just won't live up to expectations. That's just kind of how it goes. And we have a lot of returning cast members here, and I'm going to go through them here. We've got Mark Hamill returning as Luke Skywalker. Harrison Ford as Han Solo. Carrie Fisher returns as Princess Leia. David Prowse under the suit as Darth Vader. And, of course, James Earl Jones once again providing the booming voice for Darth. Anthony Daniels returning as C-3PO. Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca. Kenny Baker as R2-D2. Sir Alec Guinness returns as Obi-Wan Kenobi. And we do have some new additions here. We do have Billy D. Williams making his Star Wars debut as Lando Calrissian. We've got Frank Oz puppeteering and voicing the one and only Yoda. Jeremy Bulloch makes his debut as the bounty hunter and future fan favorite Boba Fett. Clive Revel is the first person to voice the Emperor. However, the Emperor was actually played by a mixture of a monkey and a woman. And so one of those instances where the special editions and the George Lucas touching up the originals was more than warranted here. Julian Glover appears in this one. You guys might know him as the bad guy from Indiana Jones and not Raiders. I'm sorry, but that would be The Last Crusade. He was the main villain in that one. He plays General Veers. And this film is rated very highly no matter where you go. It's almost a 9 on most scales. You're looking at an 82 on Metascore, an 8.7 on IMDb. It does very, very well across the board. But where do I put it? Only time will tell. All right, guys. So let's get right into it. This film picks up shortly after the events of Star Wars. I'm not 100% sure how far, but we do know that there is some time lapse between, and Darth Vader has been in search for Luke Skywalker. We do find out that in between A New Hope and Empire, later on, thanks to a comic book series, that Boba Fett is the one that actually finds out that the pilot that blew up the Death Star was named Luke Skywalker, which, of course, sets Darth Vader off on a path to seek out the Emperor and get a little bit of revenge on the Emperor. Doesn't quite go his way, and now he is searching for Luke. Sends out probes all over the place, and one of them heads on down to the planet Hoth, where our rebels actually are. And Luke goes out to check out these sort of things falling from the sky, which, of course, one of them is a probe, and gets attacked by the Wampa, and which is a giant kind of snow creature. Kind of reminds me of the Yeti from the Matterhorn at Disneyland, but a little bit bigger and a little more fearsome. And this Wampa attacks Luke, brings him back, hangs him upside down. And this is where we get to see Luke start to really harness the Force in a way where he's really concentrating. We get to see him manipulate things through the Force, which is something we hadn't seen yet. And Luke really, one of the reasons why a lot of people like Luke and gave Rey such a hard time is everything Luke did seemed to be kind of earned, right? We knew that Luke was a good pilot on Tatooine. We knew that he could aim pretty well, and we knew that he was strong with the Force. But he was still a bit sloppy, like he would get hit with the droid that was shooting at him on the Millennium Falcon when he had the blast shield down, and he made mistakes. but everything he did kind of seemed to take its time. And here he's struggling to move an object from just a couple of feet away. And his lightsaber is stuck in the ice just a few feet away. He reaches his arm out, can't get it to move, calms himself, takes a breath, reaches out slowly and focuses, concentrates, and then he's able to move it. As the Wampa is coming after him, he frees himself, cuts the arm off of the Wampa, escapes out into the snow of Hoth, where Han bravely is searching for him, finds him, and in a very disgusting moment, cuts open his own tauntaun, shoves Luke in to keep him warm while he's building the shelter. And the next day they're found. But we do find out that Han has been working on the Millennium Falcon. There's something wrong with it. It's not working completely properly. But as soon as it's ready, he's got to go because, as we know from the first film, there's a bounty on his head. So he needs to take care of that. And he's doing more damage than good by hanging around the rebels instead of clearing his name. Because I think in Han's view, once he can clear his name and get all that off his back, he can return to the rebels, and he's not putting them at risk anymore from bounty hunters and all that kind of thing. So the idea isn't really as selfish as it might seem to a lot of people, and not the audience, but the people within the Star Wars universe, Leia in particular. While Luke is being healed, we get that tension between Leia and Han. And it's obvious that those two are going to be paired together as a love interest at some point. It's very kind of elementary school, where the girl would hit the boy, and that meant she liked you. You know what I mean? And in the scene that will live forever in infamy, and a scene that for the life of me, I can't think why, of all the things that Lucas thought he needed to correct in the original trilogy with the special editions, why he felt that scene with Leia kissing Luke the way she did to make Han jealous needed to stay in the film. I never understood that. I thought if there was any scene that needed to get the axe, it was that one. I don't think George really ever cut much from them. I think he just either replaced scenes or he added to it. But that scene, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but that scene gave me the ick. And it did as a kid, and it still gives it to me now, because when I saw it, again, the movie came out in 1980, and I was born in 1980. So by the time I started watching the Star Wars trilogy, it was common knowledge that Darth was Luke's father. It was common knowledge that Luke and Leia were brother and sister. So when I saw that, it really kind of grossed me out, because I'm like, ugh. I had to keep telling myself, they don't know. They don't know. They don't know. Please, God, they don't know. But Darth Vader does, in fact, find the rebels, thanks to this probe droid sending back information. And he starts this assault on Hoth. Very, very cool fight scene on Hoth where you've got the walkers. They're just incredible, the way that the special effects are done in this film. I mean, you forget you're watching really primitive special effects nowadays. Back then they were just mind-blowing. But I felt, to this day, I still forget that I'm looking at little models, that these things they look huge and amazing and just incredible. So the Hoth fight is so good. And Luke, again, showing his skill. And they start taking out a couple of these walkers, but it's not good enough. The Empire is just coming at him too strong. They take out the shield generator, thus allowing Darth Vader to do a full-on assault on the rebels. And it's just, and every time Vader comes on, there's something that's so terrifying about him. as he comes on. There is very few characters in all of the history of film that have a presence like Vader. And it has to do with the way he looks, the way he moves. So David Prowse gets a lot of credit there. The sounds that he makes, the breathing, and then, of course, the moment he speaks. The combination of those four things is just so spot on and just perfect that it creates a character that demands awe and respect. It's just, I just can't say enough about how great a character Darth Vader is. And when combined with the prequels and learning about Anakin, and Anakin growing up, Anakin falling in love, and Anakin, his fears and his anger and all that stuff, and what made him into Darth Vader, add into that things like the Clone Wars series, things like the comic book series, the Darth Vader comic book series, that really dive into some of the things he had to do to truly become the Lord of the Sith, right? To truly become Lord Vader, where he just, wiped out civilizations. This guy is just truly evil on a level that a lot of people don't even know the depths of. And this is why I complain about the sequels, because Luke saw good in that. Luke saw probably the second most evil person in the entire galaxy, with everything that he had done that a lot of people would say was unforgivable. And Luke saw someone inside of there that was worth redeeming. He saw good within that guy. And as Vader is coming into the Rebel base, the Millennium Falcon just leaves with Han, Chewie, C-3PO, and Leia. While Luke gets away from the rendezvous point, he gets away with R2-D2. And I didn't mention that during the time when Luke is fading on Hoth before Han saves him, Obi-Wan appears as a Force Ghost, the first time we've seen a Force Ghost. And Obi-Wan tells Luke that you need to go to Dagobah so that you can train with Yoda, the Jedi Master who instructed me, right? And obviously, everything that came before this wasn't really thought of yet, because there's obviously, he didn't go, Yoda, the guy that taught me and my master, Qui-Gon, so, you got to just remember that there's certain elements that are going to be missing as you go. But Qui-Gon, obviously, we know, plays a huge role in Obi-Wan's life. But Yoda basically looks like got a hand in training just about every great Jedi that there ever was. When you live to be 900 years old, you're gonna touch some lives there. But so in the first film, we got everyone, the story of how everyone came together, the joining of Han, Chewie, Luke, C-3PO, R2-D2, Leia, all these characters coming together to save the day. Now, this is the second act. All right, the second act of a 3-act play. Our heroes are getting separated. And in the separation causes a downward spiral to where everything goes to hell in a handbasket. And as Lawrence Kasdan once said, and I totally agree, the second act of a play is where everything goes wrong. And usually the second act of a play is also like the best part. It may not be the most exciting. It may take some time for you to truly appreciate it. But from a standpoint of storytelling and character development and moving things along, usually the second part is the strongest part. All right. If you were to look at the Avengers and look at Avengers and Age of Ultron as Act 1, which is bringing all of these Avengers together, Infinity War would be Act 2, where everything goes to hell in a handbasket. That's where Thanos wins. And then Act 3 is Endgame. And in Act 1, it's the bringing together, it's telling the story, it's getting everything prepped. You have little bits of pieces in between, like Civil War and individual stories. But Infinity War to me is the best Avengers film. It truly is. Does it have the greatest moment of all of them? No. But it is the greatest beginning to end film for me. Endgame has the greatest finale of any of them. This film doesn't really have a finale, if you really think about it. There's no big grand finale moment. It kind of just ends on a cliffhanger because you have Han and Leia and Chewie and 3PO. They're just trying to get away from the Empire. And in their quest to get away, even goes through an asteroid field. And they land on one of the asteroids, go inside, and they think that they're just resting within an asteroid, find out they're actually inside of this beast that's inside the asteroid, flying off. It's one of the cool moments there. And then they got to find a place to go. Once the Empire has left, they kind of just float away with the trash, and they find Cloud City, where Lando Calrissian is, which Han remembers. That's who he won the Millennium Falcon off of. And unfortunately, Boba Fett is monitoring and tracking them and sends word to Darth Vader, who arrives just before Han does. Now, Lando, perfectly played again by here, is just, it's just perfect because he plays the character so smooth and everything. Like, you like him, but there's something about him you just don't trust, right? Lando is just kind of like, oh, I like this guy. Like, yeah, that's my buddy, but something's up. Something's up. And then we find out he made a deal with Darth Vader just before the arrival of Han. All the while, our comedic relief, C-3PO, has been blasted to bits. Chewie saves him, trying to put him together, ends up carrying him on his back for the rest of the movie. And Han is tortured. And one of the moments that I remember breaking my heart is he gets tortured. They bring him into this room with Leia, and he's in pain, and he says, they didn't even ask me any questions. So the idea here is they're torturing Han so that they can get Luke to sense his pain by using the Force and then coming out to Cloud City to save them and set the trap for Luke. Now, while all this is happening, Luke is off on his own little adventure going to Dagobah to meet up with the Jedi Master Yoda. And I always loved Yoda's introduction, where he comes off as this kind of funny little nitwit. And, you know, he finds something that he likes, and he's smacking R2 with his stick. He's like, mine, 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 mine. It's just funny. And what's really great, so he's like, I'll take you to Yoda. So Luke follows Yoda to Yoda. And he goes over to his house. He's feeding him and everything. And Luke starts to get really impatient. And this fun, jovial little character. And this is the brilliance of Frank Oz, why people take puppeteering for granted. And I used to get laughed at for doing puppeteering and ventriloquism and stuff, because it's a legitimate art form if you know what you're doing. Frank Oz knows what he's doing. And he could literally take a character that was one way, and just by the way he acts with his hand and the way he moves the mouth and controls the head and slinks the body, or however his movements are, can convey a complete change in character. And that's exactly what we see from Yoda. This complete change of character. And he's just like, I can't do this. Like, he's reckless. He's got this temper. He's too old. I'm not doing this. And Obi-Wan keeps going, trying to convince Yoda to train Luke. And I think Yoda knows he's going to, because Luke's kind of the last hope, or so we think, for the Jedi. And Yoda does finally kind of agree. And Luke's like, I'm not afraid. And even a puppet very chillingly can say, you will be. You will be. And he really does put him through this thing. Now, the other thing is we don't know exactly how long all of this takes place, right? I don't know that this was just a couple of days. It could have been. There's never like a timeline in these films. It's like I've had people think that the Lord of the Rings took place over like a few days or a couple of weeks. But really, the Lord of the Rings, from the moment Frodo leaves to the moment he gets back, is like 16 months or something like that. It's either 16 months or it's like almost a year. It's something like that. I forget off the top of my head. Please forgive me. I didn't look that up ahead of time. But so I don't know what the timeline is. How long was Luke training with Yoda or anything? But we do start to see that Luke's advancing in his abilities. He's able to stand, on one hand and pick up rocks. And Yoda's kind of, again, slowly taking him through his paces. And then Luke's ship sinks into the swamp. And Yoda's like, well, go get it. And he's like, I can't. It's too big. And Yoda's like, doesn't matter how big it is. Size doesn't matter. You judge me by my size. So Luke goes to get it out of the swamp. It starts to rise. And again, the mind is what fails Luke, because his mind says it's too big. I can't get it. Right? And so Yoda goes, all right, step aside, boy. And just lifts it up, and almost effortlessly Yoda gets the ship out of the swamp, moves it around. And again, another beautiful moment where Luke says, I don't believe it. And Yoda says, that is why you fail. And that hit hard. And another failing moment is Luke, during his training, goes into this cave. And Yoda's like, you don't need your weapons, right? And he goes in anyway, takes his weapons. And it's a test. It's all a test. And, of course, he sees Darth Vader, starts to have a lightsaber duel with Darth Vader, wins, takes the head off of Darth Vader, but when the mask explodes, it's Luke's face. And I think there's probably a few different ways that you could look at that. The way I always looked at it was that Luke is his own enemy. Luke is his own worst enemy. Every time people try to lead Luke down the right path, every time they get him to do the right thing, Luke is the one that is his own worst enemy. The other thing that you can take from that as well is the connection between Luke and Vader. That Anakin was down a path and became Darth Vader. Luke, his son, though we don't know this yet, is on the same path. And if he keeps going down that path, he's going to also become Darth Vader. So there's multiple ways. I think the interpretation is up to the viewer. But I think if you were to take both of those combined, or just at least the one where it's this analogy of Anakin becoming Vader, and so Luke also has it within him to become the next Vader, right? To turn to the dark side. I think that works perfectly fine. And yes, I'm swigging a lot of water here. My mouth is really dry. I've just completed multiple workouts today, so I'm keeping hydrated. But Luke, during his training with Yoda, does begin to sense that Han and Leia are in trouble. He's sensing that Han and Leia are suffering. And so Luke says, I can't just let them suffer. I've got to go. And Yoda, of course, very similar to episode 3. When Anakin's trying to ask Yoda, what do I do? And Yoda's like, you have to learn to celebrate those becoming one with the Force. You have to learn to let go of the things that you care about. And he tells them, like, and he's like, should I just let them die? And Yoda's like, if you value what they fight for, then yeah. They're obviously not giving away a bunch of information about where you are. They're not throwing you under the bus. They're doing what they think is right for their cause and their mission. So you don't need to run galloping off after them thinking you're the big hero and the big savior, because it could all go downhill real fast if you do. Yoda's trying to protect Luke, but Luke's not hearing it. And he's like, look, I'll be back, but I got to save them. Once I save them, I'll be back. So Luke takes off, and of course, Yoda's like, I told you. He's reckless. And Obi-Wan's like, and he pleaded with Luke at one point. But Obi-Wan's like, that boy's our last hope. And then Yoda reminds him, nope, there is another. And again, if you don't know what's up, it's kind of a head scratcher. You're like, what the heck does that mean? Like, there's another one out there? But it also puts into doubt whether Luke's going to make this journey or not. Is Luke going to come out of this all right? If Yoda's like, no, there's somebody else who could bring all of this back. But, you know, let's still hope he makes it back. But there is somebody else out there. And I'm sure that Obi-Wan knew that, obviously. But I also think that Obi-Wan probably felt like we were late to the game with Luke, but we're really late to the game with Leia at this point, right? So we move on, and now Luke gets to Cloud City, right? We're finally there. Luke has arrived, and during this time, as he's on his way, because I forgot this happened on his way, Darth Vader has taken Han Solo and encased him in carbonite in one of the most emotional moments in all of Star Wars, where Han is being led in and Chewie and Leia are there, and he's telling Chewie, you've got to take care of Leia now. That's your responsibility. Take care of her. And Leia shouts out for the first time, I love you. And of course, Han being Han, in a moment unscripted, says, I know. And it was so Han Solo that it was perfect. Gets encased in carbonite, survives the process. Boba Fett has his prize to take back to Jabba the Hutt. And Darth Vader now has his way of trapping Luke so that he can take Luke back to his boss, the Emperor. That's the plan. So Luke arrives, not realizing, stupidly enough, that this is a trap. And then he sees Leia and Chewie. Leia yells at him that it's a trap. Luke still keeps going. And this is where we get the first real face-off between Luke and Obi-Wan. And it doesn't fail to impress. I mean, it is a very, very good lightsaber duel, especially in comparison to the Obi-Wan Darth Vader one. Like, we see Darth Vader putting on a bit more of a show. Like, it feels like Obi-Wan's almost playing with Luke for a lot of the fight. And then we see Darth like throwing things at Luke. We see all kinds of things. And the fight's very, very intense. And at the same time, Lando's now back to being good. He never really was bad. He was just trying to do what he thought was the right thing for his people, for all the people of Cloud City. So he's now escaping after giving the evacuation alert. He's escaping with Chewie and C-3PO and R2-D2 and Leia. And Darth and Luke they're still fighting their way through this Cloud City. They get to this one point. They're fighting on a little bridge thingy. I don't know what they call it. Sorry. And Darth takes off Luke's hand. Now we get to the biggest moment in all of Star Wars history and one of the biggest moments in all of movie history, where I wish I could have experienced it the way that people did in 1980, that they did when they went to the theater. Because Darth Vader is telling Luke, join me, right? Join me. And we'll do that. We'll do it. You know, like we'll run everything. I can complete your training. I can make you extremely powerful. Everything that you could ever want, come with me, right? And Luke's like, I would never join you. And Darth's like, look, Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. And he's like, Obi-Wan told me enough. You killed him. And Darth's like, no, I am your father, which is also one of the most misquoted lines of all time. Because it's always quoted as Luke, I am your father, but it was, no, I am your father, which of course leads to Luke screaming. And it's crazy when you think about that. When they shot it, that's not what was said on the set. Only a very select amount of people, maybe just a few total. Irvin Kershner knew. Luke was told at the last minute, and Mark Hamill. George, of course, knew. There wasn't many people that knew about this. But David Prowse in the suit is saying something completely different. And he's saying, Obi-Wan killed your father. So it was a completely different line. And it's kind of intriguing because either way, it's true. Like there's some truth to either one. Obviously, Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, is Luke's father. But Obi-Wan was kind of the killing blow for Anakin's transition to Darth Vader. And when Obi-Wan said he became Darth Vader and ceased to be Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan was kind of the finishing blow there, whether you look at Episode 3 or the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. However you want to look at it, Obi-Wan plays a part in the death of Anakin and the birth of Darth Vader. At least the character that we know. We know that he's named Darth Vader from the Emperor after turning on Mace Windu and officially joining the Sith. All right. But that's not where we end this off. I mean, we're still on that downward spiral for our good guys. Luke lets go, falls. He's lost his hand. He's lost his lightsaber. He goes down this chute. He's hanging out outside of Cloud City. He doesn't know where to go, doesn't know what to do, so he starts calling out to Leia. And Leia feels the call. And this is the first time we really sense that there is a bond between them that isn't a romantic bond like Leia and Han. There's a deeper connection there. We're just not 100% sure what it is. She tells Chewie to turn the ship around. They go back. They get Luke. They come back out. And the Empire's right on their tail. R2, with a flip of a switch, fixes the hyperdrive. The Millennium Falcon, light speed. The Empire cannot follow. And that's almost where we end. Because from there, Vader walks away. Luke gets all healed up, gets a new hand. We find out that Lando and Chewie are off to go find Han with Jabba. And Leia, R2, 3PO, and Luke stay behind while Luke heals, which is our ending, leading us then into Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. So that is The Empire Strikes Back. That's the movie in a nutshell. And the pacing of this film is very, very good. I thought the special effects in this film were very good. It felt like a much, I don't want to say like a more grounded film, but it definitely felt like a middle film, right? There's no ending to it. There was a beginning, a middle, and a but that's fine. It works for Empire. The Empire doesn't need a big climax. It had its big twist moment. It had its big reveal. That was basically your climax. That was your high point. Now everything else is a slippery slope down. And then if you were to go straight from Empire into Return of the Jedi, then starts the trek back up, which is how it's supposed to be. I mean, the whole thing here is you're making multiple films that are meant to be watched one after the other in a serial fashion, much like a television series. Star Wars is based off of the old serial films that you would go and see in the movie theater, right? And the beauty of these is really watching them back to back, right? If you've ever done that, or even if it's one day, one the next, if you get to go on a run of Star Wars films, that's kind of how they're supposed to be seen. And that's how the emotional roller coaster and the storyline is supposed to flow. And so, to me, I think the lack of a solid ending, like a grand finale, actually helps Empire. It is a part of what separates it and makes it feel special. There's really no other Star Wars that I can recall that doesn't have some big climactic moment at the end of the films. You look at, episode 1, Anakin destroys the Federation ship. You've got episode 2, you've got the big fight on Geonosis with all the Jedi and the Yoda fight with Dooku. You've got episode 3, which has the Battle of the Heroes with Obi-Wan versus Anakin, Yoda versus the Emperor. Now, that's not really how it ends, but it's got a huge blood-pumping ending to it. Whereas Empire's big blood-pumping ending happens like 80% of the way through the movie. There's still a big chunk left after. So it ends on kind of a mellow note. And then, of course, Star Wars has its Death Star battle. You've got Return of the Jedi, which got the Battle of Endor. You've got the Death Star. You've got Darth versus Luke. It's just everything you could want rolled into one. But I think this helps Empire because it makes it feel special. It does have a different feeling to it than just about any other Star Wars. So I think Irvin Kershner deserves a lot of respect and a lot of kudos and a lot of thumbs up for his work doing a follow-up to one of the biggest films ever made. Irvin Kershner did such a fantastic job. So, what are my official reviews? What is my official honest rating of this? First, on a scale of 1 to 10, Empire Strikes Back for me takes a step up from Star Wars. It gets a 9.25 on my scale. It gets an A on my grading scale. And my recommendation is Empire is definitely a must-see. However, I don't think Empire should be seen on its own. In order to truly appreciate Empire, I believe you need to have Star Wars first, then Empire, and then follow it up with Return of the Jedi. So really my recommendation is you have to see all three. Empire alone doesn't really work. It's entertaining, but it works better as the second act of a 3-act play. It is not a standalone film by any stretch of the imagination. You might be able to get away with it if you don't see Star Wars. You might be able to get away with it if you don't see Return of the Jedi, but without knowing where the story goes and how it ends, it feels like you're getting ripped off in a sense. It's kind of like, my analogy would be, if you put all your eggs into the Zack Snyder basket and you watch Zack Snyder's Justice League, realizing that the story doesn't end it's just Act 1. But then you realize that the odds of you ever seeing Acts 2 and 3 are slim to none. It makes it really hard to rewatch Zack Snyder's Justice League after that. Even though it's a fantastic film, even at 4 hours, it's really, really good. But that's how I feel about Empire. With Empire, it's a must-see, but it's a must-see as Act 2 of a 3-act play. Star Wars, Empire, Return of the Jedi. So, guys, that's my honest review of The Empire Strikes Back. It is definitely one of my favorite Star Wars films. I'm a big Star Wars fan, and I like second acts. I love the original trilogy as it is, but there's something very, very special about Empire because it is different. It does have a different feel to it. It's why I also appreciate the prequels. I don't need every film to feel exactly the same. I don't need every film to give me everything that I want to see in the film. I need it to give me what I need to see from a storyline and character development standpoint. Maybe what I want isn't best for the story, isn't best for the characters. That's why when you make a film for fans and you just do fan service, it ends up falling on its face. You still might make money, but it's not looked on very kindly as time moves on. Whereas like the prequels have continued to gain fans over time, especially with young fans. And the original Star Wars trilogy continues to bring in new fans each and every generation. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Positively Pat Sims. Don't forget to join us every Friday live on WANT Radio and right here on YouTube with live chat at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern for Warriors Unleashed, where we talk about information and inspiration to help you get inspired to become that inspiration. And then Saturday morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern is the Positively Pat Sims Show, which is the greatest Saturday morning professional wrestling show on the planet. And you're not going to want to miss it with special guests like my buddy Ashton Harris, the Diamond Standard and voice of PCW Doc Haywood, my family, including my son Seth Sims, as well as me, the man himself, Positively Pat Sims. And, of course, you can check our honest reviews out as we premiere every Wednesday now from at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. All right, guys, before this cottonmouth goes totally dry, I'm going to say goodbye, and thank you guys for joining us here on Honest Reviews. And the next time you see me, we're going to be all about Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. So don't miss it, folks, as we cap off the George Lucas films and then head into the Disney era. So until then, ladies and gentlemen, take it easy. And if it's easy, what was that? Oh, yeah, take it twice. So long, everybody. We'll see you next time right here on Honest Reviews.
The lights are dim, but the room still hums with the echoes of laughter and the moments we spun. Every honest word is like a stone in a stream. It rippled, it lingered, it shaped our dream. And if you ever wonder where I'll be, look to the screen, I'll be there, you'll see. Goodbye to the faces that stayed in the glow. coffee